The phone call came on a Tuesday evening while I was reviewing quarterly reports in my home office. Mom's voice carried that familiar edge of disappointment that had become her default tone whenever she spoke to me. "Marcus, your father's 70th birthday is this Saturday," she began without preamble. "The family is gathering at Bellacourt for dinner." I set down my pen, already sensing where this conversation was heading. Bellacourt was the most exclusive Italian restaurant in the city, the kind of place where reservations were booked months in advance, and a single meal could cost more than most people's rent. "That sounds wonderful, Mom. What time should I—" "Actually, sweetheart," she interrupted, her voice taking on that patronizing sweetness she'd perfected over the years. "I think it might be better if you just stop by the house afterward for cake. The dinner is going to be quite expensive, and I know things have been challenging for you lately." The words hit like a physical blow. I stared out my office window at the city skyline, watching the lights flicker on as dusk settled over downtown. Challenging? Well, you know, the whole startup thing didn't work out, and now you're, what did you call it? Consulting? I just don't want you to feel pressured to spend money you don't have. Your brother David is covering most of the bill anyway. There it was, the comparison to my younger brother, the golden child who'd followed the prescribed path. Law school, partnership at a prestigious firm, suburban mansion, country club membership. Everything our parents understood and approved of. "I can afford dinner, Mom." "Oh, Marcus." Her sigh carried 34 years of accumulated disappointment. "I'm sure you're doing fine, but Bellacourt is, well, it's not exactly Olive Garden. The prix-fixe menu alone is 300 per person, and that's before wine. David said he'll take care of everything so there's no awkwardness." Awkwardness. As if my presence at my own father's birthday dinner would be awkward because I might not be able to split a restaurant bill. "What did Dad say about this?" "Your father agrees it's best. He doesn't want you to feel uncomfortable." Another pause. "Maybe you could take him to lunch somewhere nice another time. Somewhere more suitable." After I hung up, I sat in the darkness of my office for a long time. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows I could see the restaurant district downtown, where Bellacourt's warm lights glowed invitingly from the penthouse of the Morrison building. My family had no idea. When my tech startup failed 3 years ago, leaving me buried in debt and professionally humiliated, I'd told them I was taking some time to figure things out. What I hadn't told them was how I'd spent that time, working 18-hour days, living on ramen noodles and determination, slowly building a consulting business from nothing. What I definitely hadn't told them was that 18 months ago, I'd scraped together every penny I had, mortgaged my condo, and made an offer on a struggling restaurant that was hemorrhaging money due to poor management and a lazy owner who'd inherited it from his father. Bellacourt had been a shadow of its former self when I bought it. The service was terrible, the kitchen was chaos, and the dining room felt more like a funeral parlor than a celebration of Italian cuisine. But I'd seen the potential in its bones, the location, the reputation it had once held, the incredible kitchen staff who'd been demoralized by years of neglect. I'd spent every waking moment for over a year rebuilding it. New management, retrained staff, updated systems, refreshed decor that honored the restaurant's classic roots while bringing it into the modern era. I'd worked as everything from dishwasher to host, learning every aspect of the business from the ground up. The resurrection of Bellacourt had been my masterpiece, my revenge against everyone who'd written me off as a failed entrepreneur. Food critics who dismissed it 2 years ago now called it the crown jewel of the city's dining scene. It had a 3-month waiting list and had already been nominated for a James Beard Award. And my family thought I couldn't afford to eat there. By Saturday evening, I'd made my decision. I dressed carefully in my best suit, a charcoal Tom Ford that had cost more than my parents spent on groceries in 3 months, and drove downtown. I parked in the private space behind the building that was reserved for the owner and took the service elevator up to the restaurant. The hostess, Maria, brightened when she saw me. "Mr. Johnson, I didn't know you were coming in tonight." "Neither does anyone else," I said quietly. "Table 12. That's my family. I want you to treat me like any other guest until I give you a signal." She nodded, understanding immediately. The staff at Bellacourt were exceptional. They had to be to work there. I walked through the kitchen, greeting my chefs and line cooks, checking that everything was running smoothly. Saturday night at Bellacourt was controlled chaos. Every table full, every dish a small work of art, every detail perfect. Pride swelled in my chest as I watched the machine I'd built humming with precision. Then I made my way to the dining room. The main dining area was a study in elegant restraint. Cream walls adorned with carefully chosen Italian art, soft lighting that made everyone look like they were in a romantic movie, tables set with pristine white linens and gleaming silverware. The gentle murmur of conversation mixed with the soft jazz playing in the background. Table 12 was in the corner, the best table in the house. My family was already seated. Mom in her navy dress and pearls, Dad looking distinguished in his navy blazer, my brother David with his wife Jennifer, and my sister Sarah with her husband Tom. An empty chair sat where I would have been. I approached the hostess stand. "I'd like to join the Johnson party," I told Maria loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. She checked her tablet with professional confusion. "I'm sorry, sir, but that table is only reserved for 5. Are you sure you're in the right party?" My mother looked up at the sound of my voice. Her face went through a series of expressions: surprise, embarrassment, and finally irritation. "Marcus? What are you doing here?" I walked over to their table, noting how the expensive wine they'd ordered, a 2015 Barolo that retailed for $400 a bottle, sat half empty. "I came for Dad's birthday dinner." David stood up, his lawyer instincts kicking in as he tried to manage the situation. "Marcus, Mom explained that you didn't think I could afford to eat here." I looked around the table, meeting each of their eyes. "Is that what you all think?" Dad cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Son, it's not about that. We just thought—" "You thought I was too poor to join my own family for my father's birthday." I pulled out my phone and showed them my banking app, the balance clearly visible: $847,293. "Would this cover my share of dinner?" Jennifer gasped. Sarah's mouth fell open. David sat down heavily. "Where did you get that money?" Mom demanded, suspicion replacing embarrassment. "Marcus, you didn't do something illegal, did you?" The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Around us, other diners were starting to notice the commotion. I could see phones being discreetly raised to record what was clearly becoming a family drama worthy of social media. "Illegal?" I repeated, my voice carrying clearly across the dining room. "No, Mom. I earned it." "Consulting?" David's voice was skeptical. "You made that much consulting?" Maria appeared at my elbow, having clearly decided it was time to intervene before the scene got any worse. "Excuse me," she said to my family, "but I'm afraid I need to speak with Mr. Johnson for a moment." "It's fine, Maria," I said, loud enough for the entire section to hear. "I think it's time." She nodded and raised her voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest with us tonight. Please join me in welcoming the owner of Bellacourt, Marcus Johnson." The applause started at the tables around us and rippled outward through the dining room. The sommelier appeared with a bottle of champagne that cost more than most people's car payments. The executive chef emerged from the kitchen, still in his whites, grinning broadly as he shook my hand. My family sat frozen as the restaurant celebrated around them. Other diners were standing now, raising their glasses. Someone called out, "Speech." I looked down at my parents, my siblings, their spouses, all of them staring at me like I'd suddenly sprouted wings. 3 years ago, I began, my voice carrying over the applause. I was broke, humiliated, and convinced I was a failure. My family thought so too. I gestured around the dining room. But failure is only failure if you stay down. This restaurant was dying when I bought it 18 months ago. Now it's one of the most successful restaurants in the city. We employ 67 people. We've been booked solid for 8 months. And yes, I can afford to buy dinner for my father's birthday. The crowd erupted again. I could see people at other tables pulling out their phones, probably posting to Instagram and TikTok. By tomorrow, this would be all over social media. Restaurant owner confronts family who said he was too poor to eat there. But I wasn't done. The saddest part, I continued, looking directly at my mother, isn't that you thought I couldn't afford to eat here. It's that you didn't even ask. You just assumed. You wrote me off without giving me a chance to prove you wrong. Mom's face had gone pale. Dad was staring at his hands. David looked like he wanted to disappear under the table. I built this place, I said, my voice softer now but still audible throughout the restaurant. Every detail, every dish, every element of the experience you're having right now, I created it. And you thought I wasn't good enough to be here. The dining room had gone quiet. Even the kitchen noise seemed muted. Marcus, Dad said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. We didn't know. No, I agreed. You didn't. Because you didn't ask. Because you assumed that when my startup failed, that was it for me, that I'd never amount to anything. I gestured to Maria, who immediately appeared at my side. Maria, please bring another chair. And another place setting. I'd like to join my family for dinner. Of course, Mr. Johnson, she said, signaling to the waitstaff. As they set up my place at the table, I remained standing. I want to be clear about something, I said to my family. I'm not angry that you thought I was broke. I was broke. What hurts is that you were embarrassed by me, that you thought my presence would make things awkward. Sarah, who had always been the most empathetic of my siblings, spoke up first. Marcus, we're sorry. You just didn't believe in me, I finished. Not one of you thought to ask how I was doing, what I was working on, whether I needed support. You all just assumed I was struggling and decided it would be easier to exclude me than to include me. I sat down in the chair Maria had brought over. The entire restaurant was still watching our table, but I no longer cared. The truth is, I continued, addressing my family directly now, I wanted to tell you. I've been dying to share this success with you. But every time I tried, you'd cut me off with advice about getting a real job or settling down and accepting reality. So I stopped trying. Mom was crying now, quietly, her mascara making small tracks down her cheeks. We were trying to protect you, she whispered. From what? From trying? From succeeding? I shook my head. You were trying to protect yourselves from being disappointed in me again. The sommelier appeared with a fresh glass and poured me wine from their bottle. The 2015 Barolo was exceptional. I'd chosen it personally for our cellar. This is a good vintage, I said conversationally, swirling the wine in my glass. I selected it myself. We have about 30 bottles left. It's one of our most popular wines. The normalcy of talking about wine seemed to break the spell that had fallen over the table. Around us, other diners gradually returned to their own conversations, though I could feel eyes still occasionally glancing our way. Marcus, David said carefully, the restaurant is incredible. I had no idea how did you even? I learned, I said simply. I failed. I got up, and I learned. I studied restaurant management. I worked with consultants. I spent months learning from other successful restaurateurs. I treated my failure like an education, not a verdict. Why didn't you tell us? Dad asked. His voice sounded older somehow, tired. When? During the family dinners I wasn't invited to because they were too expensive? During the holiday gatherings where you all talked about your successes while carefully avoiding asking about mine? When exactly should I have mentioned that I'd rebuilt my life? The question hung unanswered as our server, Antoine, one of my best waiters, approached the table. Good evening, Mr. Johnson, he said warmly. Will you be having the usual tonight? Actually, I said, I think we'll all try the tasting menu. It's Dad's birthday. Make it special. Of course, sir. Congratulations on the James Beard nomination, by the way. The whole staff is so proud. After Antoine left, Sarah looked at me with something like awe. James Beard nomination? For Outstanding Restaurateur, I confirmed. The ceremony is next month in Chicago. It's kind of a big deal in the industry. Marcus, Mom said, her voice still shaky. I don't know what to say. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so sorry. I know you are, Mom. But being sorry isn't enough. You all wrote me off. You made assumptions about my life, my capabilities, my worth, all based on one failure. Do you have any idea how that felt? The first course arrived. House-made burrata with roasted peach, prosciutto di Parma, and aged balsamic. It was one of our signature dishes, something I'd developed myself during the early days when I was still working every station in the kitchen. This is incredible, Jennifer said after her first bite. Thank you, I replied. I created that recipe. We ate in relative silence for a while. The tension was still there, but it was different now. Less explosive, more reflective. My family kept looking around the dining room with new eyes, seeing it as my creation rather than just an expensive restaurant. The thing is, I said as we waited for the second course, I understand why you did it. I was a mess after the startup failed. I was bitter, angry, probably not great company. But instead of supporting me through that, you all just gave up on me. We didn't give up, David protested. Really? When's the last time any of you asked about my work? Not in a, are you okay? Way, but in a, tell me about what you're building way? When's the last time you treated me like someone who might have something valuable to contribute? More silence. The second course arrived. House-made pasta with wild boar ragu and shaved black truffle. Dad took a bite and closed his eyes with pleasure. This is the best meal I've ever had, he said quietly. I'm glad you like it, Dad. I wanted tonight to be special for you. I feel terrible, Mom said suddenly. All this time we've been treating you like a charity case. Like a failure, I corrected gently. But that's on me too. I let my own shame about the startup keep me from sharing what I was building here. I was so afraid of failing again that I kept everything secret until I was sure it would work. But you could have trusted us, Sarah said. I looked around the table at these people I'd known my entire life. Could I? Based on how you've treated me for the past 3 years, would you have believed I could pull this off? The question answered itself in their silence. By the time we reached dessert, a spectacular tiramisu that had been featured in Food and Wine magazine, the atmosphere had shifted completely. My family was asking real questions about the business, about my plans for expansion, about the industry. For the first time in years, they were seeing me as someone with expertise, with something valuable to share. I want to invest, David said suddenly as we were finishing our wine. I know you probably don't need it, but I want to be part of this. I want to be part of what you're building. David, I mean it. I've been looking for investment opportunities outside of traditional securities. This place is incredible, and you're incredible. Let me help. I looked at my little brother, the golden child who had always had everything easy, who had never failed at anything significant in his life. You want to invest in your failure of a brother? I want to invest in my brilliant brother who built something amazing from nothing. The evening wound down slowly. Other diners had long since left, but Maria had quietly ensured our table was never rushed. My family lingered over coffee and grappa, asking questions about the restaurant industry, about my plans, about my life. As we prepared to leave, Mom pulled me aside. "I owe you an apology," she said. "A real one. I let my fear of you getting hurt again turn into something ugly. I convinced myself I was protecting you, but I was really just giving up on you." "Mom." "No, let me finish. I am so proud of what you've built here. Not just the restaurant, but yourself. You turned failure into something incredible. And instead of celebrating that, I tried to keep you small and safe. That was wrong." I hugged her, and for the first time in years, it felt real. "There's something else," I said as we separated. "I bought the building too. All 6 floors. I'm converting the upper floors into luxury apartments. One of them has an incredible view and a kitchen almost as nice as the restaurant's." Her eyes widened. "Marcus, how much is this all worth?" "More than David makes in a year," I said with a small smile. "Turns out failure can be pretty profitable if you learn from it." As my family left that night, each of them made a point of thanking the staff, of complimenting the food and service. They lingered in the lobby, looking around with new appreciation for what I'd built. I stood in the dining room after they'd gone, watching my team clean up for the night. Maria approached with the evening's receipts. "How did it feel?" she asked. "Different than I expected," I said honestly. "I thought I wanted revenge, but what I really wanted was recognition. I wanted them to see me differently." "And do they?" I considered the question. "Yeah, I think they do. But more importantly, I see myself differently. I don't need their approval anymore to know I'm successful." "The James Beard nomination probably doesn't hurt," she said with a grin. "No," I agreed, laughing. "It doesn't hurt at all." As I locked up that night, I reflected on how much had changed, not just in my bank account or my business success, but in my relationship with my family and, most importantly, with myself. The scared, bitter man who had been excluded from his father's birthday dinner was gone. In his place was someone who had learned that true success isn't about proving others wrong, it's about proving yourself right. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and dozens of text messages. The video of my reveal had gone viral overnight. Restaurant owner Revenge was trending on Twitter, and the story had been picked up by local news stations. But the message that mattered most was from Dad. "Son, I'm proud of you. Not because you're successful, but because you never gave up. Happy birthday to me, indeed. Love, Dad." 3 months later, when Bellacourt won the James Beard Award for Outstanding Restaurateur, my entire family was in the audience cheering. Mom cried through my acceptance speech. David had indeed become an investor and was helping me plan a second location. Sarah had started bringing clients to the restaurant regularly. More importantly, they had started treating me like the successful entrepreneur I had become, rather than the failed startup founder I had been. The change in their respect meant everything to me, but even more valuable was the realization that I no longer needed their validation to know my own worth. The last line of my acceptance speech that night was, "Failure isn't the end of your story, unless you let it be." Sometimes the best revenge against those who doubt you is simply succeeding despite them. The applause was thunderous, but what I remember most is seeing my father wipe away tears of pride. That moment was worth every sleepless night, every dollar invested, every moment of doubt I'd overcome. Sometimes the best revenge is proving that you were always more than they believed you could be.